Okay, so I'm here with Paul, and we're going to do another interview in education. And so, Paul, I've done a lot of talks over the years, and most recently, I've talked with people what we call, or you call, over the pond. And so, over the Atlantic Ocean, I'm starting to talk with people in the UK and Africa and even beyond. And so, one, thank you for joining me today. And two, I know you're excited and you have a lot of things to say. But before we get started in the actual interview, can you tell us exactly where you are from and a little bit about your background?
I'm from the UK. I was born in a city called Bristol, which I know there's a few in the United States. But I changed profession because of an injury, went into teaching because I found I could actually do it. So I had a friend who was in the industry and I used to help him out and the students and sort of I made them engage with it and opportunity came up. I got into teaching, got a promotion, moved up to Buckinghamshire, a very expensive county just north of London in the home counties. And I've been teaching here for the last, it's got to be like 16 years now, on a variety of roles, including business, economics, done some sociology, done a bit of politics, and lots of other sort of mini subjects as well. And I also help people with careers as well, because that links into business. So I've had lots of ups and downs, but worked hard to make things better, not necessarily for myself, but to the students I tend to teach. So, and on top of all that, in the last few years, I've done some private education at summer schools with overseas students, which has proved to be really, really successful. And it's given me an eye opener to lots of different aspects of education. So, hence the talk here.
Well, good. I appreciate that. So, business education, that tells me you're focused on high school, college. What age group, what grade level are you focused on?
Um, I'm not sure how to equate it to American grades. I should do, but I don't. But normally GCSE or BTEC at level two is 14 to 16-year-olds as a general rule, and A level or BTEC level three is 16 to 18-year-olds, which is either taught in what we call sixth forms or in FE colleges, further education colleges. And there's some alternative provision out there as well, but I normally do schoolwork from 14 to 18 on a variety of courses. So, yeah.
Okay. So for us, that's kind of bridging top of the middle school level into high school. So majority of that is high school. And then of course, graduating after 18, everybody's going into college. So have you taught any collegiate level courses or are you really focused on the high school level?
Um, Focus on high school. I have been sort of spoken to about looking at university study, undergraduate type stuff. I do post a lot of academic stuff on LinkedIn because I need to have that challenge academically. So that's one of the ways I do it. So, but it's not just about business. I talk about economics, I talk about politics, I talk about sociology, current affairs, anything else you like, really. So, yeah, it's something I could do. And I've been approached the last couple of days about doing some business management work in the education sector, which is outside of the teaching bit, but related to education anyway. So,
Well, today you wanted to focus on business education. So how did you want to get started? What's your passion about business education?
um, but it comes from my degree and the stuff I've studied in the past. I do like my economics, but I like it to be real, and I want to see things improve because I don't see the UK doing particularly well, and I want to help our students develop so they can actually engage in business and move things forward. Because what we have seen over the last 20, 30 years is a lot of UK businesses, they've either folded or been taken over by overseas concern, and there's no indigenous, if you like, business or business dimensions in the economy, and I want to see that improve to a certain extent. So, but we need, and our PM spoke about it yesterday. Um, so I'm cringing here a minute because he says lots of stuff and doesn't know what he's talking about. But it's building our skills base. But he wants us to be a high-skilled economy. But I can't see that happen in the short term. Certainly with students I teach in our schools. I have seen it with the overseas students I've taught in the summer schools I've taught at, and I say there's a marked difference between the two sets of people.
So when you're in the classroom, how do you focus a student's attention so that one, they get the best out of your class, and two, they are really better engaged to be, I guess, business professionals? How do you make that happen?
Well, I think I'm a realist and I want to be real, if you like. And I use my expertise, which is I'm a middle leader teacher as well. So I'm a departmental lead, but I lead by expertise. So I'm always looking at the news. I'm always looking at business stories, economic stories. And I like to deliver that in lessons along with the theoretical content so they can actually see what I'm talking about has some merit in real life. And that, for the majority of our students, will get them engaged because they want to know what's happening and why it's happening. And I'm able to do that on their level. Because I know I write very academically, but when I talk as I'm talking now, it does come from my Bristolian past and I speak the way I do. And that sort of engages them to a certain extent because they understand you're passionate about it. And I'm getting passionate now.
We'll
And
get
that
passionate. It's
makes,
okay.
yeah, that's what, so, oh, Mr. Templar knows what he's talking about. Let's listen type thing. And I do have people come to see me after lessons and at break time and everything else and just having a chat just about general business and economics. And it's some engaging talk. I just wish all my students would want to come and see me. So
So,
yeah.
so it sounds like, from my perspective, it's a lot of project-based learning components, which means it's not just about the academic content. You put it into the perspective of real-world situations, and so that's really where the bulk or the core of our students' learning should take place. What most recent project or real-world scenario have you engaged your students with?
I've just finished a unit on finance, and there's some numerical stuff in there, but a lot of it was the qualitative and the quantitative factors that went into it. And we just covered something called Elkinson's triple bottom line and Norton and Kaplan's balanced scorecard. And I'm not sure if I've lost you there, but both of those take a wide perspective of business success and what makes success for them, because inherently businesses looked at just making lots of revenue and lots of profit. But certainly in a modern context, and I talk this all over the place, is to do with we got to consider the environmental concerns in business. And also we've got to consider the gender and ethnic makeup of a business and targeting different ethnicities and genders in both recruitment and in providing quality goods for them. And to do that, you've got to have sort of a balanced scorecard, as in Kaplan and Norton say, but also, say, with Elkinson, it's the triple bottom line, which is people, profit, and planet. So, and the argument there is you've got to make a profit to maintain the business and keep it profitable for the long run so you can keep on reinvesting. So you can therefore be more environmentally friendly, for want of a better phrase. But to do so as well, you need to take your employees, your customers, and your suppliers with you. You can't operate just to make a profit, because you're going to go out of business fairly soon, because people see through that, and certainly in the modern age anyway, certainly our younger generation in social media. So there's lots of that to engage them with.
Well, I like that. So it's people, profit, and planet. And so you did teach me something new today, and I appreciate that. So when I have conversations with other professionals, they talk about sustainability, they talk about inclusion, and I think you mentioned a piece of that, and they also talk about culture. How do we build an internal culture, not just from the planning perspective that this is the process and procedures we do to do things, operations, but really a culture that supports what you just said, supports the people. They understand there's a profit to be made just for the business to, keep going. And then we talk about the planet and sustainability. How do we reinvest back into the community and back into the planet? So what are your thoughts on all that?
That's brilliant, because it's something I didn't put on my list of things to talk about. But last summer, I got asked to produce a course for business and sustainability with an organization called the Eden Project. Not sure if you've heard of them.
I've not. Can you give us a little insight?
They're an organization down in Cornwall. They got, I think it's 4 or 5 geodesic domes, which they grow exotic plants. And there was a two-pronged approach. One, they done what they talked about what they'd done and their sustainability and making sure plants sort of kept on living, if you like, a bit like Kew Gardens. They keep all the exotic plants and grow them in this country so they don't die out. But I focused on this fast fashion industry.
Okay.
And I had to go and research a bit of that to actually develop the course. And I actually got frightened. There's a TV program on British TV from about 10 years ago now called Blood, Sweat and T-Shirts. And is one of our young female presenters. She went all over the world looking at how clothes were produced. And it looks at stuff like polyester, which we know it comes from oil. But it's one of those production processes to actually make the polyester thread. It gets forced through a sieve and there's tiny threads of polyester. And if they break off, those are the ones that gets into the water and into the oceans and eaten by our lovely fish. And then you got all the dyes, and I think it's been phased out now, but a lot of the dyes that have been used in fashion over the years have been chemically based, and the dyes themselves have been polluting the local rivers where the materials have been produced. And a lot of this is in East Asia and the Indian subcontinent, and that's where a lot of the pollution comes down there, which is also killing off the fish and all the plant life in the streams and rivers into the Indian Ocean and so forth. And so that was a big eye opener. And then you look at cotton, and cotton uses God knows how much water to produce it and clean it and manufacture it into the cotton thread to make the cotton sheets and everything else, or a cotton material to make clothes. And it's just horrendously bad. And one thing it's got me is we've got to keep on wearing clothes for a lot longer. And I think that's come out in some of the TV programs in the UK quite recently. But I reflected on that in my lessons as well. So that's another thing that can engage students. And then they go out and buy a brand new item of clothing to wear it to a disco or a party or somewhere. So does it work? Not sure. It'd be an interesting thing to find out what's really happening in America, because you've got the old cotton fields down south, haven't you?
We sure do. Yeah. And my daughter just learned about the cotton gin last year in 5th grade as part of the American Industrial Revolution. So yeah, we do have a lot of that going on. But earlier we talked about how the school structure has changed a little bit from schools to what you called academies, and it's the academization process. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's the change from where the schools used to be run and overseen by local authorities.
So is this a good thing, bad thing, or what's your thought on it?
It's a matter of people's opinions. If you're at the top of a multi-academy trust and you're getting paid £500,000 a year, it's a good thing. But as I found,
how did that change the teaching process? So does that change?
Well, it was a political decision anyway, and is borne out by politics rather than efficacy, if you like. And I don't think many of the teachers realised quite the impact it would have, because what was said is that schools and new academies could actually pay what they wanted to pay to get good, experienced and effective teachers in. Okay. What it's resulted in is the opposite, where because budgets are so tight, they've actually got to pay lower wages and salaries, which is not very motivational. I mean, we can go through motivational theories from God knows how many different people. And Maslow and Hertzberg, for example, that they always say you need the money to survive and to have a safe living environment. And we talk about well-being, which I've done a lecture on recently as well. If you get paid very little, you can't really afford to live, and your well-being goes out the window. So, but for me, I don't think it's been a good idea. And I said I've been at the bottom end of that because I've linked it to recruitment and retention. And it links in with austerity program we've had in here, because after the financial crash, we were very, very poor as a country. And what conservatives tend to do with their neoclassical economic and monetarist theory, they want to come back on government spending to try to balance the economy again. And all it's done is starve the public sector of money, which we desperately need. Yes, we see it in education. I'm not sure if you get it in news over there, but our health care sector and our social care sector is really, really struggling because we just can't recruit people, and the wages are low anyway, but even with that, we can't afford it. But what in business teaching, what has really happened is, and I don't know if it affects other subjects, but I haven't seen very many permanent teacher roles for business studies teachers in the last 10, 11, 12 years. And what it means is there's no continuity in different schools because people get appointed for a term at a time, of which there's 3 in a year. So there's no planning in place, there's no tracking of student progress, there's no continuity for students. And this not going to get any better when you appoint teacher after teacher, because we know people don't like change, and students, certainly at below 16, don't like change at all. So, and they just kick off and behavior suffers as a result. Sorry, I just disappeared you there. But no, I don't think it's a really, really good idea, okay? And for example, I've worked a lot of 0 hours contracts, so you don't get any holiday pay, you don't get any sick pay, you don't rarely get pension payments. So our pay is dropped right down in effect. And I say, if you're a young teacher teaching business, you still got the expertise from the university degree, and you go back into industry and earning twice as much. So pay does have a factor in that one. So I'm not a great lover of academies. And I say also as well, it's the administration and oversight that local authorities gave, we're now losing. So it's I find it quite disappointing, to be perfectly honest with you. So
well, now you're breaking my heart, and you left me speechless because I think I don't think the UK is in a silo. I think the world is being impacted by different policies, and I'm not at all a political guru, but we have, I don't want to say crises here in America, but we do have issues in education, teachers wanting to leave, a lot of things going on, people not wanting to go back to their jobs or transitioning into new types of employment. So I think after the pandemic, we're in a new type of pandemic. It's because we're just in a state of flux.
I must admit, I think I've had a survey today from one of the unions about post-pandemic teaching in the role in the classroom. But from a global perspective, I say I have taught overseas students. I've had some very nice Chinese students, and they're very, very intelligent. They just want to catch up. But what struck me is I taught some Eastern European students face-to-face a couple of years back, and they were highly critical of their education system, as were the people from Central America. I think it was Costa Rica, Honduras, and El Salvador where I had people from, and they were highly critical of their education system.
Of
and
their
they said
own?
they want to, they said they want to come over here to our system. I said, don't really want to, unless you go private into one of the good schools, of which we got lots.
Right.
And I'm in an area of the country where there's a lot of private provision. But you actually got to pay an awful lot of money for that, and most parents probably can't afford that. Having said that, if you're a son or a daughter of a diplomat, which some of these students were, you can probably afford the £10,000 a term that it costs to educate your son or daughter. But it also gives that bunk up as well. So,
well, you have a lot of things to say, and I wish we had more time. But I know that one of the other things that you wanted to talk about today was syllabus. And so, how do you look at that in terms of being the crux or the cornerstone of what you do in the classroom?
well, so this again links back to the private work I've done, because I said I've got asked to develop courses, and some of them I've actually developed specifically for teaching online. And not wishing to brag my enjoyment too much, but they work really, really well. Mainly because I've chosen the bits that are one interesting, but I put it in such an order that one topic builds on another, and I've made it engageable and had those real life experience and case studies built into the course, so students can see it's real life and move on. What we've got with our current syllabus is certainly we've got the vocational side, which is BTECs and something called Cambridge Nationals or Technicals, which students do lots of coursework. The syllabuses are fine. I've got no problem with that. One of the problems I have got is the marking and assessment, because it appears to be very, very, so we say weak in how it's done, and it's not very robust because some poor spelling and grammar, which I didn't think I was very good at, but I'm picking up some really, really bad stuff that comes back from external moderators with the exam board. And I can't see how it should have passed, and it has done. So, that
do you
really
see
gets me worried.
yourself? Can you see yourself as a person or a model for better or change, improvement, or
Yes, but what I found is you go into schools and say there's a problem with this, that, and the other, and people don't like you as a result. When you're being honest with people and say things need to change, and what happens is you actually make yourself a bit of an ogre, if you like, and management don't want to listen to what you've got to say, even though I come from a realist academic perspective, but also wants to do well for the students I actually teach. But you got to make sure it's right. But if students are, I'm not going to say students are getting away with poor work, but it's the system's letting them get away with poor work, and they're going to struggle when they go in to get a job. And I don't know if you get it over in America, but we complain about immigrants over here taking our jobs. But if they can do the job better than our UK-based people can, I've got no problem with that. And you've got to explain that to students. You've got to be better than your competitors from wherever in the world they come. And some of our courses, especially the vocational courses, I don't think do that. And I also look at our academic courses, and we got them over here. We got GCSEs and we got A levels, and I know some of those aren't robust enough. Some of them are nice courses again, but it's whether they're marked to give the student the best grade they can get, or they're marked effectively, and I don't think they are. And so it goes back to the BTEC. I think in the BTEC level 3 at A level, which is level 3, which is 16-year, 18-year-olds, they got a choice, I think it's about 25, 26 units, and they might have to do 8 of them. Are you going to tell me that's a complete course in business if they only do 8 out of 26 modules? I think there needs to be a rethink of this. I think the units on their own, because it's modular based, they're probably very good on their own, the ones that I've actually taught anyway, but it's the fact that it doesn't give the students a wide perspective of what business is about. And if they're going to achieve in business or a real world in a world of work, they need a wider perspective, or specialize in one area, do a general course, then do a specialized course and say HR or marketing and stuff like that, which they can then go on to university and carry on to more in-depth and more breadth areas in a specific university degree. So I know universities deliver those, and they are quite effective. And it's something that can be investigated, if you like. But I know the marketing and advertising course I put on for students, I said they achieved from knowing nothing about marketing and advertising to degree level standard in 2 weeks, an hour a day. So if they can do that, and that's only like a taster session, but they did produce work at the end at that sort of level. But that's what we probably need to think about doing.
Well, Paul, you've identified a lot of things that we need to think about. Those in education, those in politics, those who want to support, I guess, change, if we could use that word appropriately. Before we end the call, any good words of, thinking into the future a little bit? How would things be different? How would things look different? How would things act differently if we could put some effort into it? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think funding needs to be looked at, because if you're going to make the changes I think need to be changed, such as having shorter, more specific courses, they're going to be smaller classes. Students need to be able to pick a particular topic within a subject area. And that's the same for anything from geography to biology or anything else.
Okay.
And you need specialist teachers in those areas, not just a generalist teacher, which I probably am, but you need better provision, you need more spaces, so more schools, and better decorated in secure schools in that respect. Because I've taught in some, I'll let you think of a word what I could call them, but they're not very well presented. They're not very clean or tidy or anything like that. The spaces aren't very good for teaching in. All that costs money, as does the recruitment of the specialist staff. But also the management and administration of all this is going to be an absolute nightmare. So you need more input and more thought to rationalise all the administration work needs to be done. How are you going to present it to the universities, what students achieved? So it's a whole range. You need a holistic perspective on what we're trying to do to make those changes effective and suitable. Because yes, you need to be pragmatic about some of it, but also some of these changes, we've got to think about feasibility. Can it be done? Are we going to have a sort of trial period within certain schools to do that? And is it going to be for those students who don't do very well? So we've seen changes over the past 30 years since the Baker reforms of 88. It was a bloke called Kenneth Baker was the education secretary of the Conservative administration back in 88, and he brought in GCSEs from the old O-level series, and it was apparently good to start with, but it's gone downhill ever since. So there's lots of things to think about, I think.
Well, like I said, we do have a lot of things to think about. Paul, thank you so much for your time.